Hi everybody, Robin here at Toadstool Tarot. I recently saw a hashtag challenge questionnaire by Lisa Papez, and I thought I would give it a shot. It's a series of questions called hashtag Tarot FAQ. So it's divided up into several sections. First one is deck preferences, and the first question is, what are your thoughts on illustrated minors versus pips? I think decks with pip cards can be pretty. I find them more difficult to read. I kind of need images of figures performing actions. Those work best for me. So I also have similar problems with animal decks or natural history, plant, herb-based images, unless the animals are wearing human clothes, anthropomorphized and performing human actions. Those I can work with. But I kind of need to see people doing people things for me to be able to read intuitively easier. So yeah, I prefer those to Marseille or Pip style decks. How do you feel about keywords on decks? I'm not for them. I can see where they might be helpful to some people learning, but I think they can also misdirect or mislead you sometimes. I don't always agree with the same keywords or terminology, and I don't really like other people basically directing me or telling me the way I should interpret an image through a keyword that they've figured out that I haven't arrived at. I mean, I might come up with my own keywords. I don't really write them down, or I guess I could write them in a journal, just make a little mental note of them, but I don't think I would necessarily impose those on other readers and tell them, what keywords they should use. How do you feel about borders? I think it depends on the deck. I often don't like borders if it's a minimal deck, or sometimes the imagery just kind of goes off the edge of the card. Those are nice to have borderless. On the other hand, some cards are very busy. There's a lot of detail in the images, and sometimes they need a little bit of a border to rein them in. Now, that's not to say the border should take over the real estate on the card. Some cards have really thick borders or very ornate borders. I think the border should serve the image, not be its own entity. And some of them have borders within borders, which just seems a little bit wacky to me. Next question is, what makes you decide to modify a deck? I haven't modified too many. There were a couple that I felt like they might work better borderless, so I did take the white borders off. There were a couple that had keywords on them. I didn't like the keywords, so I took those off. Those were the two instances where I modified a deck. I don't edge my cards. I know a lot of people love edging their cards, edging their decks. I don't really quite understand that. I mean, I guess it's sort of like branding your deck or imposing your own energy on it or something, or laying claim to them, or I don't know. I don't really know what's behind that. I just don't quite get it. The edges of the cards don't mean anything to me. For me, it's all about what's on the fronts and the backs. No, I don't read the edges, and I don't really care what the edges look like. Although there are a lot of decks these days that are gilded on the edges, and I originally thought, oh, that's a nice, pretty novel idea, and isn't that glitzy and, glamorous? And I think, I don't know, now everybody's gilding their edges and gilding the lily. It's just a little too much. Makes it a little too precious and a little unrelatable. It's like handling Tiffany jewelry or something. I want, nice earthy cards that I can relate to and handle freely and warmly and easily. I don't want something that's going to put a barrier between me and the cards and make them feel standoffish or uppity. uh, what kind of cardstock is your favorite? I like this sort of silky, satiny stock. Well, one of my favorite deck. I have a lot of them in tins because I really don't like tut boxes. I'm not sure if that's a question on the list for later, but I had a tin made for my favorite, the RWS 2.0. And these have a really slick feel to them. They're made by MakePlayingCards.com, and they're nice and slippery. They don't slide overly. They don't jump all over the place, when you shuffle them. But they have a real smooth feel. They don't catch, they don't stick, they don't clump. They're not matte and they're not overly glossy. They're just kind of in between. And you probably won't be able to see the finish on the cards, but it's and these backs are not favorites particularly, but I really love this cardstock. I also don't like it when decks are too thick or too stiff. So this is a nice weight cardstock for me. That's about the size and thickness a deck should be for me. Manageable, handleable, tarot card sized, not oversized. I like them this size or smaller, not the mini decks, not the oracle sized, oversized decks. These are just perfect. Let's see. Buying and backing decks. Where do you go to look for new decks you may want to buy? I will often look for under the new listings on Amazon. I'll also wade through the pages at MakePlayingCards.com or Printers Studio. Or I'll go and see what people in the Tarot Tube community are recommending, although I have to say about 80% of those just don't appeal to me. And I'm finding more and more that I prefer unusual, quirky, indie decks as opposed to mass market decks. Something a little more unique, something that not everybody's going to have. And I also don't tend to fall into embracing popular trends in new decks for the most part. Let's see. What has been your best and worst Kickstarter/crowdfunding experience? How do you decide what decks you want to buy or back? I haven't used Kickstarter. I've only done one pre-order, and that was through Deviant Moon for the Abandoned Oracle that was taking pre-orders in May and wasn't due till September. And I only did it because I liked the preview of the handful of cards that I saw, and I didn't want to miss out because it was a limited run edition, and I was afraid if I didn't pre-order, they would sell out and I wouldn't have the chance to get them. So I placed a pre-order. I'm not likely to do that again because I think I would feel the same way about Kickstarters. I get so impatient. The time flies, but when something's not due to ship for 5 months to a year, I just go crazy with anxiety and anticipation. So, yeah, I'm not very good. I would rather just not back it, not pre-order it, and jump the gun, take my chances when it's released and get right on it. I did actually, I think I also did do a, no, I didn't pre-order. I was going to pre-order the Lonely Dreamer Tarot, but I was keeping an eye on things, and I waited until it was released. And when it was released, usually when they take pre-orders or do Kickstarters, they have 50 to a couple hundred extra decks above and beyond the run that they had planned, and I try to get right on it as soon as I hear it's released and place an order. Now, I was going to do that recently with the Baba Studios deck, it's called the Enchanted Menagerie, Fantastic Menagerie. I did find another Granville deck that I got earlier. And that one didn't work out so well because it was released and went out of print immediately. So I missed out on that one. C'est la vie. Next question, how much is too much to spend on a deck? I would say $80 and up, although I have spent more. I spent $180 on the my Royal Fez Moroccan deck that I fell in love with. I actually do have the box, but it's really beat up. I have it set aside, and I keep these in a tin. I'll just show you a few of these cards. But yeah, this was an eBay purchase, and I think with the tax and the shipping, it came to about $180 something, which seemed a little extreme at the time, but when it's out of print and you really want it, what are you going to do? Don't have much option. So I was lucky enough to get it, and I'm thrilled to have it. I'm trying to think. Oh, I did recently buy a Blushing Fool, and I think that one ended up costing me about $120. It was under $100. I think it was like $120 with the shipping and the extra charges. It hasn't arrived yet. It's on the way. So, but I think $80 is a reasonable price. The other ones that I've spent more on, they're out of print. They're really scarce. But yeah, I don't think new decks should be that expensive. 60 to 80 seems high to me, even if they're indie. But when it comes to how much is too much to spend on a deck, it really comes down to how much can you afford and how much do you want it. And the availability, of course. Do you have deal breaker cards? I don't think so. I mean, I'll find cards in a deck that just spoil the whole deck for me. But they're not specific cards in the deck. It has more to do with the specific imagery in that card. That's a deal breaker for the deck. Cards that have to feel right to you to pull the trigger on a deck, what are they? It's the same kind of answer, really, I guess. Although I kind of need the card stock and size to be right. I have a little checklist. I need the imagery to be right. I need the labeling to be right. I don't like them to reassign labels. I mean, I like the standard page knight, queen, king, and the 4 suits, and it's like if it's different designations, I'm not fond of it, and I'm getting to the point where I'm not buying those anymore. And the back design I have to like. So there have been a couple decks that I didn't buy just because I really didn't like the design on the back. That kind of was a make or break thing for me, which is a shame because the images on the front are nice, but if the deck looks ugly and you don't even want to pick it up to use it, then what's the point, right? Reading style. Do you have a daily tarot practice? Not really. I'll just get out my little lap tray and pull out a deck of cards and usually do a little 3-card spread, what's going on for me today or what do I need to look out for this week. And, I don't do these a few times a week. I don't do them strictly every day or morning and evening or anything like that. If you don't have a tarot practice, when do you read for yourself? Okay, I guess I just answered that. What's your go-to shuffle style? I shuffle, I call it overhand. I don't know if that's what it's called or not. I know a lot of people riffle shuffle, and it drives me crazy. I'm not saying nobody should riffle shuffle, and I get the tactile fun of hearing the riffling and stuff, but I just kind of feel it feels almost irreverent to me. These cards seem really spiritual and special and like they should be treated with kid gloves. And riffle shuffling to me seems so forceful. It's kind of like an attack on the cards. And I don't know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. I like to be more gentle with my cards. I like to let them slide in the deck and fall into place. I don't like to force them into alternating shuffling. Ugh. It's not for me. Might be for you. Have fun with it. Go to it. But no, especially when you have like rare, scarce, or out of print decks. That makes me a little on edge when I see people that have spent hundreds of dollars on rare decks and then they riffle shuffle them. It's like, my God. How do you choose which deck you're going to work with? I'm not sure. I have quite a collection, and I have, I guess, anywhere from 5 to a dozen decks near at hand that I'm kind of using at the moment to choose from. And then once I stop working with any of those, I'll put them into the collection on the shelves. And I do drag them out from time to time, but there's kind of a rotation of the most recent decks that I'm using. It just kind of works from that. And I like some of my newer decks that are a little bit more unusual. They're interesting to look at and to study, but I find when I'm really going for a reading, either for myself or somebody else, that I need to pull a deck that I'm very familiar with to make it easier for me to do the reading. So, a standard or variation on an RWS designed by Pamela Coleman Smith, those are images I'm really familiar with. And so it's kind of like a common denominator language that is quicker or easier for me to kind of mentally reference when I do a reading. I want to apologize if you're hearing whooping and hollering in the background. I live in Greenwich Village, and they just announced the election on the news today, and there's a lot of celebrations in the streets and in the park here on Saturday night. It's a little bit crazy here, but I'm having quiet time in the back of my building here, and while they're going nuts outside. Do you purchase professional readings for yourself? No, I haven't. I have sort of traded readings or asked a couple people if, they would voluntarily read for me or felt like reading for me. I haven't, paid anybody yet. I think I did trade a deck for a reading once. I said, here, I don't need this anymore. Would you like it? And, maybe you'd read from it for me before I part with it. Do you use tarot for anything other than divination? I have a few decks that don't read well for me, but have beautiful art. And they're just kind of like galleries or museums in a box. And they're just really nice to have, like collecting cards to just kind of, you know, meander through and like look at images. It's like looking at an art book, except it's not in, set sequence, which is kind of a nice surprise. It's like you go in a gallery and all the pictures are set up in a predetermined pattern, but when you have them in a deck, you can shuffle them and it's new every time. It's a rearrangement of the images, so it's fun for that. I have a few decks I probably could let go from my collection, but I hold on to them just because the artwork is nice to look at, even if I find I can't divine or read or consult with them. The third section of the questions is reading for clients. How did you know you were ready to read for clients? I'm not ready. I do have twice monthly live videos on my channel that I share and do readings with another person, and probably will do more with other people. But I kind of rely on the other people to help me through my readings and help me develop my skills. And I think it's sort of a nice learning process and a dialogue. Not only do I learn, but I think the other party learns, as well as people in the chat learn, and they contribute by adding things into the chat, suggestions and so forth. So I think that's a nice way to learn how to read the tarot and develop the potential for reading for clients. Do you do anything special to set up for a client reading or for yourself? Well, no, I don't have clients really. Do you let your client handle your cards, aka do you shuffle and ask them to draw and cut, have them shuffle, or do you do it all? I've only read on a couple of occasions for a friend, and what I usually do is I will lay the deck on the table, put my hands on the deck, and then say, put your hands on my hands. So I let their energy, I imagine their energy going through my hands to the deck. And then I shuffle, and then I don't let them handle the cards at all. I shuffle and I say, tell me when to stop. And when they say stop, that's when I stop, and then I deal out the cards. So, I mean, I've only done that a couple times, but that's my method, I guess. Are there any questions you would refuse to answer for a client? Not sure about refuse. I probably would prefer not to answer yes or no questions or determinations in terms of dates or times, or a lot of people want fortune tellers, like future readers and stuff. That's not really what I'm interested in. And I think I'm more interested in a kind of a psychological approach. I'm less of a card reader and more of a tarot consultant. So it's like I like to have a dialogue with other people and sort of, most people come to a reading, they have difficult situations that they're too close to really be objective about their personal problems or situations. And they could probably just as easily go to their priest or a therapist or a friend. For me, it puts a little bit of a distance between me and the person in terms of friend mode by putting the cards in between, and we both kind of look at the cards like, this is what I see in the cards. Does this relate to what you're talking about? Or what do you think about that image or the way I'm seeing that card? Do you see that differently? So forth. So I like that kind of a dialogue. Last question. Do you have any advice for people who want to start reading professionally? I couldn't advise anybody about doing it professionally. And I realize people, want to make a living at this and charge for their services. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not anywhere near that. I don't know that I would ever want to charge. People do it. It's fine, whatever you want to do. It's just not something I relate to. In the same way that I don't relate to monetizing my channel or, having commercials play before you get to watch one of my videos. But, hey, if that's your thing, go for it. It's not where I'm at right now. Anyway, I had fun doing this Tarot FAQ. Maybe you will respond to some of these questions too. I'll try to post them in the comments section below or in the labeling area, whatever you call it, explanation. And I'll see you all again soon. Got some decks on the way. Bye.